Hello, this is Dave Sugarbaker, and this is the last day of 2023. This is the 123 day. So, I have a incident from the book of Luke. This is Luke 9:28 to 36. It's about Jesus going up the mountain. And Jesus took with him Peter and John and James and went up on the mountain to pray. And while he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly they saw two men, Moses and Elijah, talking to him. They appeared in glory and were speaking of his departure, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Now Peter and his companions were weighed down with sleep, but since they had stayed awake, they saw his glory and the two men who stood with him. Just as they were leaving him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah," not knowing really what he said. While he was saying this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were terrified as they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone, and they kept silent and in those days told no one any of the things they had seen. I like Peter. I admire his enthusiasm. He can charge off in the wrong direction with full energy and enthusiasm, and then when he's redirected, he can reverse course and charge in the opposite direction with just as much enthusiasm. Jesus asks the disciples at one point who people say that he is, and there are a lot of theories going around. The disciples report, some say this and some say that. "But who do you say that I am?" Jesus asks. And Peter answers, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter," and that is Petros, "and on this rock, Petra, I will build my church." But half a chapter later, Jesus is setting out for Jerusalem, and Peter gets in front of Jesus to block his path. And Peter explains that it's suicide to go to Jerusalem. It's the center of Jewish power. It's the source of the lethal opposition to Jesus. And Jesus has to say, "Get out of my way, Satan." So here's Peter. On the one hand, the rock on which my church will be built. On the other hand, "Get out of my way, Satan." Peter objects later on when his teacher, Jesus, wants to wash his feet. And that's not the way it's supposed to be in Peter's mind. Jesus is trying, however, to teach his disciples about leading through servanthood. When Peter objects to Jesus washing his feet, Jesus says, "Unless I wash your feet, you have no part of me." Then Peter, being a literalist, I guess, says he wants not just his feet washed, but every part of him. And I can imagine Jesus saying, "It's a symbol, Peter. I don't have to literally wash every part of you." Peter and Paul were like two opposing leaders of the earliest church. Paul was out recruiting Gentiles for the new Christian movement, and Peter, on the other hand, back in Jerusalem, was convinced that no one should join the Christian movement without having a background in Judaism. His stance was, first become a Jew and then become a Christian. It's the only way that you will understand what Jesus had to say. Then Peter has a dream. A tablecloth containing all kinds of all kinds of non-kosher foods is lowered from heaven, and Peter is invited to eat. Help yourself, Peter, is the invitation. And Peter says, thanks, but no thanks. I don't eat that non-kosher stuff. The voice from above says, what God has made clean, you shall not treat as unclean. And lest Peter missed the point, Peter has the same dream 3 times. And to reinforce the point, as soon as Peter wakes from the dream, there's a knock at the door. And someone is requesting that Peter come to a household of a Roman centurion, a Gentile, and tell that Roman and his household about Jesus. This is just what Paul has been pushing for and what Peter has been resisting. But Peter, God bless him, got the point of the dream. And he goes to the home of the Roman, teaches them about Jesus, and invites them into the church. In the scripture reading today, Jesus invites 3 of the 12 disciples to go up the mountain to pray. This was the inner circle of the disciples, perhaps, Peter, James, and John. It's a life-changing moment for those 3. They see Jesus transformed as he prays. His clothing becomes bright white, and there is with him, the disciples see, Moses and Elijah, the 2 greatest figures within Judaism. Moses and Elijah are talking to Jesus about what is to take place soon in Jerusalem. For the observing disciples, it's the most amazing religious moment that they could imagine. So what does Peter want to do? He wants to prolong the moment. He suggests to Jesus that they build 3 temporary shelters for Moses and Elijah and Jesus. But before Jesus can reply to this, a cloud envelops all of them at the mountaintop, and a voice comes out of the cloud to say to the disciples, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." When the cloud is lifted, Jesus was alone with the 3 disciples. No Elijah, no Moses anymore. The moment had passed. We don't know what Jesus said to his disciples other than that they should not talk about what they had seen. It must have been hard for Peter to leave that mountaintop and return to everyday living. Jesus may have had to insist that it was time to go back down to the crowds, to the critics, and to the relative humdrum of daily life. Peter had wanted to build 3 lean-tos and hang out at the mountaintop for a while. We don't know what Jesus said to Peter to redirect him from the miraculous mountaintop to the less than spectacular life down in the valley where the population was, complete with those in need, those with an axe to grind, those who wanted to spin things for their own purposes, those who were out to make a fast buck, those who were waiting to trap Jesus in some heresy or another, those who wanted to prove that they were holier than everybody else. And the list goes on. We've just been to the mountaintop. The music, the mystery, the miraculous star, the angels, Emmanuel, sharing with family, reaffirming our friendship and connection with the exchange of gifts, It's been wonderful. But we can't stay on the mountaintop. Eventually, the tree will have to come down. And I'm advocating that we wait at least until January 6th when Befana comes. Whatever our work is, it's going to begin again in earnest after Happy New Year. On the mountaintop, it's all candles and carols. But just as Jesus had to redirect Peter down off the mountain, we have to get on with our new year. I recently read that the real work of Christmas begins after we blow out the candles and pack away the Christmas tree. The hungry need to be fed. The grieving need a patient listening ear. Those who are outside the gate need an invitation to come inside. Those who have wronged us need forgiveness. The children who live in domestic violence need to find safety. We need to be grateful for the mountaintop, but we need to remember to come down again. Can't live up there all the time. But we take Christmas with us. We make it right with those whom we have excluded. We ask for forgiveness and seek reconciliation. That's what comes next for us, after the mountaintop. Now, God bless you. If you find value in this, I hope you'll pass it along. Take care of yourself. See you soon.